everyone, welcome to another Music Talk Tuesday, and today I thought it would be interesting to briefly address some songs that are about cars. Yes, um, whether metaphorically speaking or literally speaking, um, these songs I think offer really interesting interpretations when it comes to cars. Um, and I think that there is this sort of Americana element to cars since a lot of cars are on the roads these days, obviously. So, especially within the United States, I know public transportation within Europe is a little bit more popular and accessible. But within the United States, it's pretty much all cars as the majority form of transportation. And I think there is this sort of um, kind of car culture that we have within the United States, and I think it only makes sense like why films like Cars are so popular. Um, and without further ado, let me address these particular songs. The first one I wanted to address is a really kind of just fun song. It's just so peppy and upbeat. Um, and that is Little Red Corvette by Prince. This is probably my favorite song actually from Prince. I find his other songs to be good, but this one I think kind of holds a special place within my heart just because it's just so kind of upbeat, and it doesn't try to take itself too seriously, although it's kind of addressing a somewhat serious matter, so I kind of appreciate the sort of irony that it displays. But basically, the Little Red Corvette is not actually a Corvette in the sense that it is trying to describe a little red Corvette. Um, it's basically a metaphor for a woman, in particular, a fairly promiscuous woman. And he uses a lot of car metaphors to kind of emphasize her promiscuity. For example, love them and leave them fast. You know, she's not the one that kind of stays tied down. But uh, it also kind of displays itself in a way that reflects onto sort of a lesson and a sort of a warning onto the Little Red Corvette. Because basically he says, you know, you got to slow down. Baby, you're much too fast. And again, I think this is a very interesting kind of comparison, like comparing a promiscuous woman to a car. Because I think there are sort of a lot of similarities that come with that, especially when you're talking a Little Red Corvette. You know, something that, you know, goes way too fast, has a lot of horsepower, you know, lives on the edge, is kind of dangerous. And that's sort of the lifestyle that this woman lives. And he sort of kind of says, you know, you got to slow down. You know, you don't want to, you know, ruin those precious moments that you have. Um, because eventually, like cars, we eventually grow old and we're not as shiny and we're not as fast or as you know, robust anymore. So I think it's a really interesting way to convey this sort of uh, message to the audience, and I like how it does it in a fairly interesting way, because um, it shows you the amount of weight uh, can be given onto having sort of a responsibility in the same way that we sort of take responsibility for a car, because there's other things that are important to a car than just being fast and flashy and, you know, good looking or nice, pleasing to look at. And in the same way a woman sort of is, you know, there's more to her than just, appearances. And I think that's kind of what the song was sort of aiming at too, this idea of, hey, you should really look at, what you're doing and really realize what it's leading to. And I like how the narrator tries to bring that out within the song. And I sort of appreciate the irony because, on the one hand, he's addressing a very sort of serious matter to her, but at the same time, it's just so upbeat, it's so catchy. Sometimes you don't even think about. I always think of a little red Corvette, usually. I don't even think about a promiscuous woman when I hear this song. But it's interesting, to say the least. And I think this song is one of those interesting songs, and I think it says a lot about cars with by putting in this metaphor that has nothing to do with cars, but is similar to I guess you could say cars, um, and conveying this kind of an interesting message along with that. So it's definitely a song that I think is catchy, fun. You do feel like that the person that he's talking about, she is a good time for a while, but eventually that engine's gonna burn out. It's time's gonna go by. So yeah, I think that's really something that really is reflected within the lyrics, and it's nice to have a song where even though the lyrics may mean one thing, you can kind of let that go and still enjoy the song regardless of its message. Even though I think its message is really interesting and worth paying attention to. Um, but yeah, I think that's ultimately all I can say about that song. But moving on now to Fun, Fun, Fun Until Her Daddy Takes the T-Bird Away. No, just Fun, Fun by the Beach Boys. This song I find to be really not only catchy, but catchy in this sort of Americana kind of way. Whereas Prince, you can kind of feel like the 80s vibe and the kind of 80s pop-ish sound. This is very kind of, retro. This is like, early 60s, late 50s style pop. And it really works. And unlike in the previous song that I mentioned, where it's literally saying a little red Corvette is a woman, this song kind of takes the car in the perspective of being, in the literal and perspective sense, because it does mention a car within the song, a T-Bird, and how this girl goes around and rides in her T-Bird and has a lot of fun. And that's where Fun, Fun, Fun comes in, which is really the title of the song, even though it's addressing fun in a more specific sense. And again, I think even though the car is mentioned in the song, it is also addressing something that's something that the car symbolizes. And I think especially back then, especially when you started getting the big highways and the roads, this was a sort of it was sort of speaking to the American dream of freedom. Like, the car gave you the ability to go wherever you wanted to go. And that was something that I think made people want to have fun and just go off and do their own thing and, get away from all of the headaches and stress and just, be on the open road. And this song really sort of expresses that, not only through the lyrics, but also through the instrumentals too. You do feel like it's just that laid back, prosperous time period, and it's just fun to listen to. And the interesting thing is that eventually her T-Bird does get taken away, But then the narrator comes in and says, hey, but you can always come in my car and, we'll have fun again because you will have a car that will give you the freedom to go wherever you want to go. And I think that was just something that was really big back in the day, especially since, again, yes, the 1930s and 40s did allow cars to be a lot more accessible, but again, the 50s and 60s sort of brought out the, the real spirit of the car, and I think this is why America in particular has this strong identity to cars in particular. So it's a really catchy song. It has a lot of innocence to it, unlike the previous song that has a lot of interesting metaphors that you could probably interpret in various ways. And this one is just kind of peppy and fun, and doesn't try to take itself too seriously, but expresses, I think, an interesting and fun metaphor too about, or fun message really about how the car sort of conveys this sense of freedom and being able to go and experience what you want to experience. You're not tied down to the small town that you live in, so to speak. So the next song that I wanted to briefly address, second to last song, is Black Limousine by the Rolling Stones. The interesting thing about the Rolling Stones is how over their kind of, I guess, music library, you'll notice that they do try to do a little bit more of a variety, and it's interesting because they sometimes don't even sound British at times. They sound more American. And this one is definitely more of an American style tune. It's a little bit more of a blues rock, so to speak, Black Limousine. But the interesting thing about this song is that it addresses, again, the car literally and then sort of the car in a figurative sense too. Because within the song, the narrator talks about how he had fun with this one girl, and he sort of kind of talking to her in a way, by saying, we had a lot of fun, back in the day driving in that black limousine, and we were young, and it was we were wild and sort of free, so to speak. But as we got older, it wasn't the same anymore. And I think there is some sort of truth to that, because the car, like people, age, they grow old. We're not the same as we were in the past. I mean, it's not to say that we're somehow better or worse, but it's to say that, the times of, just living carefree are pretty much disappear over time, because there is a sense of, again, responsibility, and I think eventually when we get older we realize all the freedoms we had are really ultimately amounting to responsibilities. So so I think this song does a really good job of conveying that sort of a message of like, well, look at us now, we're not the same as we were before, not the same when we were riding that black, limousine and thought that we were on top of the world, and yeah, I think and I think it's interesting too because, again, it has this sort of ironic nature to it, similar to Little Red Corvette, where it's kind of addressing a somewhat serious matter of like, hey, we're getting old, and oh yeah, we don't do this anymore, but we used to. And it's very not so much upbeat, but it's very cool. It's very there's almost this really hard edge to it. Um, but it's also very enjoyable and upbeat at the same time. So I think it's really interesting and definitely one that is worth consideration if you're interested in uh, these kinds of songs. And now the last one I wanted to address is a Beatles song, um, out of all things, and this is actually an interesting song because unlike a lot of other Beatles songs that focus on sort of different things, this one focuses on cars, in particular one car, and basically about sort of people being sort of the Beatles chauffeur, so to speak. Um, the interesting thing about this song, unlike a lot of Beatles songs who are just very innocent, mellow, this one kind of has an ego about it, especially within the lyrics. You'll notice how the vocalists go, "Baby, you can drive my car. Yes, I'm gonna be a star. Baby, you can drive my car, and baby, I love you." Or I think it's either baby or maybe. If it's maybe, that is kind of that's kind of interesting. Oh, okay, maybe I'll love you, or baby I'll love you. I don't know, but either way, it is kind of odd. But on the one hand, I think cars are often used as a very big status symbol. Um, as far as wealth is concerned, and as far as people's ego. I mean, it makes them feel good if they have a nice car, and also maybe too because they maybe worked really hard to buy the car, and so there's a lot of satisfaction and and ego surrounding that purchase. So it's cars are definitely worth a lot of value. I mean, next to a house is probably the second most expensive thing you will buy. Um, but even though it does have this, again, the lyrics do kind of display this, ha ha ha, look at you can, yeah, you can just drive my car, ha ha, look at how awesome I am. Um, there is such a catchiness to it that it's just there's just a point where I just go, I totally don't mind driving your car. Even if you're gonna brag to me the entire way about your car, I don't mind because if you just as long as you keep playing the song, I'll be entertained. It's it just has this kind of interesting edge to it, while at the same time kind of maintaining that sort of traditional Beatles sound, and I really do like it for for those reasons. Um, and uh, basically asking other people to drive your cars is sort of like, I guess you could say, an honor if you are, somehow famous. So on the one hand, it is kind of looking down on people, but at the same time, it's kind of lifting them up and saying, "Baby, come drive my car," "Baby, you can drive my car because my car is awesome, like me." So it does convey that huge individualistic, I guess, attitude. But at the same time, you feel like you want to hit the open road when you listen to this song. You feel like you want to go into a car listening to this song. It's just one of those songs, and I think it ultimately works, despite some people maybe being turned off by the lyrics and thinking that, wow, the Beatles, I guess, did have a big ego back in the day, and yeah, I think that kind of shows with this song, but I don't think it's trying to be. I don't think it's trying to be negative as so much as it's saying, you know, look at how awesome we are, and you can drive my car because of that. Um, and I think from what I could tell from my research, they were kind of overwhelmed by sort of the fandom, so to speak. And this song was kind of a way of maybe expressing that too. Um, So again, there are different ways in which people can look at that song, but I just find it fun, and it just makes me feel good because I'm just driving the road. I feel like I'm driving the road in my cool car, in my reliable Honda CR-V. um, so yeah, those are ultimately all of the songs I have when it comes to cars. I'm sure there's plenty of others, ones that maybe people find to be better, but these were the ones that sort of stood out to me. I would be more than happy to hear anybody else's favorites, but I think that's really ultimately all I can say. I'll be sure to leave links below to all the songs so that you can listen to them all for your enjoyment. But yeah, I think that's really ultimately all I can say for this video. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you on the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.